Hi guys, I'm Liz, the founder of Less Debt, More Wine, and I first started that blog to help hold me accountable on my debt journey. And while I still have plenty of debt to go, law school isn't cheap, I've come a long way and I've managed to destroy and bury a lot of that debt using the debt Noreaster method I'm going to explain to you today. So before I do that though, I just want to tell you a little story. When I first started figuring out my finances and looking at my debt, I read a lot of different things going, on the internet and different personal finance gurus. And with the amount of debt I had, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do gazelle-like intensity, if you will, for the entire time. I just had too much debt. It'd be for too long and life would be miserable and life's too short to be miserable. So I decided to come up with my own method, the debt Noreaster method. And it allowed me to destroy and bury over $6,000 of credit card debt in about 6 months. And then I took a breather and I moved states and I worked on building savings for a little while, and then I went back at it hardcore, just like a new nor'easter, new storm, and destroyed some more debt for my car loan. And then it took a breather because life happens and things happen, and you've got to step back from being super intense and hardcore and throwing snowballs and snowflakes and all the stuff I'm going to go over. And then you kind of gear up again and you do it again. And so the debt nor'easter is meant to help you make a lot of progress, but also stay motivated and recognize that motivation is cyclical. And so sometimes you're going to be more motivated to pay off debt than others, and that's okay. So let me go into the different steps of attacking your debt using the debt nor'easter method. So step number 1 is to stop getting into more debt. So that's one that's going to hold true in between storms, if you will. Because if you are trying to pay off credit card debt, but you're still using the credit cards, it's like taking, maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or even 1 step forward and 2 steps back. It's pushing a giant rock uphill, and you may end up further behind than when you started. So you have to stop using your credit cards if that's your debt. If you're not dealing with credit cards, whatever other debt you have, don't take on anymore. Don't take out a new loan. Don't go buy a car that requires you to take out a loan for it. Stop gaining more debt. So that's step 1. Step 2 is that you need to hunker down, right? We all hunker down before the storm. And you need to dig into those numbers, and you need to create a 1-pager that has all your debts listed out and the details on them. So hunker down with the numbers is step number 2. Step number 3, start with saving. So in order to prevent yourself from going into further debt when stuff comes up while you're working the debt nor'easter method, you need to have some savings built up. So I like to recommend 3 times the average cost of your most recent emergencies, because when it rains, it pours, things happen in threes, Murphy's Law, all that jazz, so I don't like to give a set number of you should have $1,000 saved. Now that being said, you don't have to reach that savings goal before you focus on your debt, but you need to have the savings built in. So when I was starting to pay back my debt, I started with doing an automatic transfer from my paycheck to my savings account of $25. So $25, it started out $25 a month, then it moved to $25 per paycheck because I got paid twice a month, and that moved up to $50, so I was saving $100 a month. So once I had, I think, a little over $1,000, I started focusing on the debt, but I kept that automatic savings going. So I was continuing to build savings so that when something came up, something I forgot to budget for, an emergency, whatever the case, I had that extra money so that I wouldn't have to turn to my credit cards to pay for it. So that's step number 3. Step number 4 is to get mentally prepared to pay off this debt, right? So it's all well and good to say you're going to focus on your debt, but you have to actually do it. You have to be in the right frame of mind that paying off your debt is going to be the first thing you do with your money. And then step number 5 is to utilize snowflakes, snowballs, and avalanches. So you may have heard of the snowball method or avalanche method of paying off debt. Snowballs, you start with the smallest balance first, and avalanches, you start with the highest interest rate first. But for me, that didn't really make a lot of sense because I had some student loans that had lower interest rates, but because of the balance, they actually cost me more in interest per day than credit card debt. So it wasn't necessarily going to make sense one way or the other based on how to save myself money. And then the snowflake method is where you put every little extra dollar, quarter, penny you have towards your debt as soon as you get it. So if you find a quarter on the street, you go put 25 cents towards the debt. You get a $5 rebate, same idea. So instead of just choosing one of those methods, I like to utilize all of them. And that's really the heart of the debt nor'easter method, right? Because a nor'easter is a massive storm, and it's wind and it's snow and it's a whole lot of things going on. And so that's where you're going to really build progress towards paying off your debt, is by utilizing all 3 techniques in a certain way that makes sense for you. So I did start out with paying off my credit card debt. It wasn't maybe the most financially sound, but I knew that they had a bigger impact on my credit score. So I wanted to improve my financial standing by getting rid of them. So when I started the blog, I did pay them off, the credit cards off, in order of interest rate. But I actually had started with a little snowball method, because before then I had actually paid off my smallest credit card. So it's a combination of the 3, and I think it's fine to kind of prioritize debts that frustrate you more, because debt is an emotional thing. And so the debt nor'easter doesn't tie you to any one plan. It helps you figure out the best plan for you, and taking into account the impact of paying off different debts, as well as the emotional payoff that you get. Because being in debt, money, it's an emotional thing, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. That's it, and I will go into more detail in the post.